Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Now, as you guys know, I am a bit of an Apple fanboy. I have a lot of Apple products, and one of the products I love the most is my MacBook Air. But what if you're deciding between Windows or Mac? You can see in my background here, I also have a Windows computer that I use for work. So what are the main differences? Why do I prefer the Mac software over Windows? And if I was someone who wasn't brought into the Apple ecosystem, what one would I realistically go for? I'm going to share all my thoughts on both Windows and Mac today, and also a bit of information around what I like about each of the operating systems. And if I was to start fresh, what one would I pick? Now, originally I did start off as a Windows user, and to be honest, I think Windows is one of the simplest operating systems to use. There's tons of personalization and customization features, and if you've ever picked up a computer, the chances are you've used Windows software before. It does have lots of updates and lots of things that happen in the background, and often a lot of Windows computers can be carrying some bloatware which has been installed by the manufacturer. But if you can overlook that, I do think that Windows is a great operating system, and I use it every day for work, and I don't hate it, I'll say that much. But I do find that Mac's operating system is just slightly cleaner, slightly more refined. And if you know how to use the commands well, which can be difficult to learn, but if you learn how to use them well, you can really quickly navigate around Mac's operating system, probably more efficiently than you're able to move around the Windows operating system. So, in my opinion, I think they are both fantastic operating systems. I think Mac, in terms of its stylistic and in terms of its navigational elements, slightly takes the first point out of the two operating systems. Now, if you're someone who is interested in security, obviously Mac has built-in antivirus software. Windows does have Windows Defender, which does work, but a lot of the times it's recommended that you use an additional antivirus software on top of what comes on the PC. And again, it's another point to Mac. Mac has so many security features built in. It also has biometrics on there, and Apple's biometrics are fantastic. Now, I know a lot of Windows PCs from lots of different manufacturers also have biometrics on them. My PC is a HP one, and it does have good biometric systems on there, but it's just not quite as fast as on the Mac and not quite as secure as on the Mac either. And that is down to Windows. Although saying that, Windows does have Windows Hello, which you can unlock with your face instead of just having to use Touch ID on the MacBook Air. But I just find that Touch ID is a bit more faster and a bit more responsive. And I actually prefer to use it when I'm not using my password anyway. Another thing to take into account when you're looking at the two operating systems is windowed view, and whether you're someone who likes having a windowed view or whether you prefer the more sort of full screen element that Windows comes with. So Mac operating system has a very layered approach to your windows. Things sort of stack up on top of each other, and in some ways it's good because it allows you to have everything open at once, but also it can be slightly confusing at first, especially if you're coming from a Windows operating system. You'll start to find that you are losing track of some of your windows, and you're like, I thought I had Safari open a second ago, where has it gone? Or I had my notes open and now I can't find them. And it can get confusing at first if you're someone who doesn't use the commands to tab through your different files and things that you have open. Whereas Windows does have that slightly cleaner look with having multiple windows open. Things tend to open more full screen. and although they do layer over each other, it is sometimes easier to find things that you're working on because taskbar at the bottom holds all of the things that you have open. Whereas on a Mac, a lot of the time those things only show up in your dock when you minimize them. So that is something to take into account if you're somebody who can get confused when there's lots of windows going on and you don't really want to learn the commands to tab through things. I think Windows probably gets a point there in terms of how the actual windows that you're using are laid out. It can be a lot simpler on a Windows PC than on a Mac, especially at first. Now, I think once you get used to the way that the Mac operating system works, it can be more efficient and you can use it to flow through workflows a little bit better. But I would definitely say if you're someone who's thinking about swapping over to a Mac, is something to take into consideration. There are bits to learn, and I would definitely recommend watching a tips and tricks video to try and understand the different commands, how you can use Spotlight Search to search for your files, and also how you can use specific commands to tab through things that you have open all at once, just so you can find things a little bit easier and start to understand how to navigate the Mac software in a more efficient way, because definitely commands are key when it comes to Mac. Now, when it comes to compatibility, Windows is probably the winner, especially when it comes to gaming. If you are thinking about gaming on your PC, I would probably steer clear of a Mac and stay with Windows. There is a lot more compatibility with Windows than there is with Mac. And although the Mac sort of integrates more seamlessly with the Apple ecosystem, outside of that and from a software and programming perspective, there is definitely more compatibility with Windows. Now, that being said, Mac comes with its own suite of products. It's, I think, Pages and Keynote and such, which are pretty good in terms of the fact that they're free apps and they do allow you some real good functionality. But I would definitely say the Microsoft suite is potentially slightly better. Word is universally accepted as the sort of go-to software for writing. PowerPoint is the go-to universal software for slides. And then obviously Excel for any spreadsheets is the definite winner in that area. So there is a little bit less compatibility when it comes to Mac. Although Mac has tried to do a good job of seamlessly integrating, you can use Pages to export into a Word format if you want to move backwards and forwards between operating systems. And then obviously you can export to PDF as well if you want to share the file more universally around as well. So from compatibility standpoint, I definitely would say it's 1 to Windows, which I think draws it up at 2-2 in my opinion. So it's close at the moment. Now let's talk about look, UI and customization. And Windows definitely has a lot of customization options, even down to being able to change the color of your cursor. But in my opinion, I think Mac takes the cake when it comes to UI and customization. The UI on Mac is so clean, simple and clear. These sort of traffic light buttons for being able to close, minimize and full screen apps is absolutely iconic. And with the addition of the new iOS 26, or I think it's Tahoe on the Mac, the clear icons are incredibly beautiful, and it really makes your PC feel like a work of art when you're using it. I think the Clear Apps update is potentially one of the best updates we've had for Mac in terms of its how visually appealing it is when you're using it. I'm a massive fan of the clear icons. The only place that I don't use them is on my phone, but everywhere else, every other product that I have has clear icons on it whenever possible. So I'm a big fan of the way the UI looks and the interface works on Mac. So I'm definitely giving the point to Mac on that one. Now, another thing to consider is that Mac is only on Apple products. And with Windows, there is a ton of different OEMs that you can purchase from to get a Windows PC. You can get a Surface from Windows themselves. There's HP, Dell, Lenovo, Asus, all sorts of different products at different price ranges. We are going to be potentially getting a more affordable MacBook coming in the future, but right now the entry to Mac and at a MacBook level is £1,000, which is quite expensive. And although the operating system is fantastic and the Apple silicone is honestly breathtaking, I can't believe it's as good as it is. The price point is still higher. So in terms of the sort of barrier to entry, it's more expensive to get a Mac device than it is to get a Windows device for sure. With that being said, the experience that you get from a Mac device, especially as someone who owns an Apple ecosystem, is truly just so productive. You can open an app on your phone and it carries over to your PC. All your reminders, notes, contacts, messages are all synced across. So it really does give you so much efficiency. And I think that's how Apple have really won in this space, is just, first of all, the design of their devices is just incredible. And even down to the design of their software, it is just beautifully designed and it really has the user in mind. And because of the fact that it is specifically designed around their silicone and around their products, it's tailored perfectly, whereas Windows obviously has to suit all of the different PC manufacturers that are going to be making devices and using their software. So I would say that although there is a slightly higher barrier to entry on the Mac, the experience that you get is just so much better and cleaner on a Mac than on a Windows PC. And for that reason, if I was to recommend one of these operating systems to you guys, it would be the Mac operating system. Now, obviously, everybody has their own price point and everyone likes what they like. So I'm in no means saying get rid of your Windows device and go and get an Apple product. Both of these operating systems are absolutely fantastic. I use them both on a daily basis, and honestly, they're fairly interchangeable. It's just if you want that top-notch, more premium experience, I would 100% recommend a MacBook, Mac Mini, iMac with the Mac operating system, because especially if you own Apple products, the experience that you're going to get in terms of combining your workflow is just going to be unmatched. So let me know down in the comments section below, are you a Windows user or a Mac user? Do you agree with the things that I've said about Windows and Mac operating systems? What do you guys prefer? If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that I'll know what videos you guys enjoy and I can make more like that in the future. That's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.